What is going on, guys? Welcome to Birds of the Round Table. I think episode 2 here. Sorry for the 2-week hiatus. I was in Disney World living my best life in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. It was a blast. But joining me, I've got my man who is also on his vacation. He is Shane Half at Half and Half _TPL. What's up, man?
Oh, man, it feels good to be back. I was gone for like 2.5 weeks, literally like finished the draft and then left. And so I went to Italy, which has always been a dream. I'm a big history nerd. And so especially Roman history. So I got to go see all the cool stuff. I'll probably put some pictures out on Twitter later. But it feels good to be back into a routine. I'm trying to lose the pasta weight, and I'm excited to talk about the Eagles.
Dude, I heard the red sauce and the grapes are just on another level when it comes to Italy, man. I'm really jealous that you got there. But today we are doing a early 53-man roster projection for the Philadelphia Eagles. Me and Shane are gonna break it down position by position. Lead us off, Shane. Let's just jump right in. Go quarterback. You're up.
Okay, so I've got the depth chart pulled up here. So the Eagles currently have 4 quarterbacks on the roster: Jalen Hurts, Gardner Minshew, Reed Sinnett. I don't even know if that's how you say his name, and Carson Strong. So obviously Hurts and Minshew are going to be on the roster. I think Carson Strong's also going to make the 53-man roster. You could make an argument that they'll put him on a practice squad and they've guaranteed him money, so he'll stay. I think there's room to keep him on the roster, though, especially with Minshew in the last year of his deal. So I do think Strong will make the 53-man. So I'll keep 3 quarterbacks here for my 53-man.
All right. Shane is going with 3 quarterbacks. I am also going with 3 quarterbacks: Hurts, Minshew, Strong. I think Strong is probably the most intriguing name of this group, 100%, because of what he brings to this roster. He's literally the opposite of Jalen Hurts. He can destroy defenses in the intermediate to deep areas of the field. So I'm just going to write this in. We both agree Hurts, Minshew, Strong is on the roster in 2022. All right, Shane, who is your running back? Let's just go straight offense for now. Running backs on the roster.
Are we picking what we think will happen or what we would do? I guess I should have clarified that.
Dude, do what you would do. Come on, man.
What I would do. Okay. That'll impact my wide receivers. As I've been in Twitter fights about lately. But so for running backs, the Eagles have Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott, Jason Huntley, and Kennedy Brooks, the UDFA at Oklahoma. I'm going to keep 4 running backs, and Huntley is going to be the guy that I get rid of here. So I'm going to keep Sanders, Gainwell, Scott, and Brooks. I feel like Huntley's best shot to break into the roster was last year as a returner, as the Eagles really struggled in the return game, and he never did it. And so if you're not going to use him as the returner, he's just kind of redundant with the backs they already have that are better in Sanders, Gainwell, and Scott. And I really like Kennedy Brooks, and not just because he's an OU guy, but he fits that LeGarrette Blount, that Jordan Howard type of role. I watched this guy play all through his career at OU. He's not an explosive athlete. He's not going to hit home runs, but he's got really good vision behind the line of scrimmage, and he runs downhill. And I think that's an archetype the Eagles like to have, and I think Brooks fits that. And so I think he might get a shot to get some playing time this year, sort of in that role that the Eagles always tend to neglect at the start of the year and come back to down the stretch, a true power back.
All right, so we're going chalk here through the first 2 positions 100%. I've also got 4 running backs on my squad. I've got, of course, Miles Sanders, who I'm not that high on, but Kenny Gainwell I am really high on. I think he's on the short list of breakout candidates for the Eagles in 2022. Boston Scott, I mean, the Eagles are still going to play the New York Giants, so he's still going to be on the roster. And then I think Kennedy Brooks could be that new Jordan Howard on this roster. And if that doesn't work out, they can still just bring back Jordan Howard on this roster, be that guy in between the tackles. So we're going to chalk, man. Straight up chalk. Sanders, Gainwell are our running backs for this 53-man roster. Go ahead, Shane. Who is your projection for the wide receivers?
Okay, so I got AJ Brown. He's going to be my X receiver, starting on the outside. I think the Eagles are going to use Brown a lot this year as the isolated guy in trips formations and try to allow him to win on slants and dig routes over the middle. That's what he's really good at, is over the middle of the field. I'm going to have Devonta Smith will be my slot receiver. That gets him off the line of scrimmage where he doesn't have to deal with press as much, utilizes his quickness on those two-way go routes over the middle or breaking outside. And then Quez Watkins, a guy that I didn't think I was going to have to defend so much on Twitter today. I tweeted about being excited about that trio and got a lot of pushback on Quez Watkins, but Quez Watkins was 6th in the NFL last year in yards.
You got pushback on Quez Watkins?
Yeah. He was 6th in the NFL last year in yards per reception, and
that's crazy.
He should have had some more. There were some yards left on the field due to poor quarterback play, and so I think Watkins is a great fit there as a deep threat. I think this could be a good year for him, and I don't think he's ever going to be a volume guy because it's a run-heavy offense with two really good receivers ahead of him. But those are my big three. I think Zach Pascal, he's going to make this team. He's going to be your wide receiver 4. He's not particularly exciting, but he knows Sirianni's offense. It's sort of the Chase Daniel type signing for wide receivers. He's on a $1.5 million deal that's fully guaranteed, so he's going to make this roster. And then I'm going to keep Britton Covey, the UDFA, as a wide receiver, and I'm keeping him mainly for his return ability. He's a good return man. Maybe he develops into a slot receiver, maybe he doesn't, but I think he can contribute on special teams, which is a big need. And then because I had the room and I didn't think I was going to, I'll keep a 6th wide receiver. I'll keep Jalen Reagor. Not because I want to, but because it costs more money to cut him than it does to keep him. And so if I have the spot, I'll keep him. Maybe he breaks through. It's like a less than 1% chance, but it saves me some money this year. So that's my 6 wide receivers I'm going to roll with.
Love it, love it, love it. And now we're getting into some differences here. For me, I've got obviously AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, both studs. I think both are gonna arguably the best duo in the NFC. Period. Quez, I'm really excited to see his next step in his development with the Philadelphia Eagles. He really impressed me last year. I think I'm gonna go number 4, Pascal. I think he's a really good blocker. He's obviously Nick Sirianni's buddy. I think he's got good size. He's a possible red zone target for Jalen Hurts. He's also versatile. Like, he's going to be able to play in the slot on the outside, wherever you want him to play, for sure. Obviously, and I don't want to say it, but I'm going to go Reagor. Jalen Reagor. He shouldn't be on the team, but like you said, Shane, like, it hurts them to get him off this team rather than keep him on it. So they're stuck with him here. And then I'm going to go Greg Ward. Let's go Greg Ward as my 6th wide receiver on this team. You guys make fun of me all the time for my Greg Ward love. It does not stop. That Greg Ward train is not stopping in 2022. So for me, I'm going Brown, Smith, Watkins, Reagor, Ward, and who is my
Pascal?
Yeah, Pascal. So let's roll into tight ends. You're up, man.
All right, so tight ends, I have the Eagles keeping 4 guys here. Obviously, they're going to keep Dallas Goedert. Could potentially be a really big year for him. And then I have them keeping Jack Stoll, Tyree Jackson, and Grant Calcaterra. So sorry to the J-Jaw guys out there. I don't think he's going to get 4 seems to be a little heavy at tight end, but the Eagles really like to – no, I didn't keep J-Jaw. I kept Tyree Jackson.
Oh, Jackson, my bad.
Yeah, I was apologizing to the J-Jaw stands if there's any out there. The four is a lot of tight ends, but the Eagles really like to operate with 2 tight ends on the field. They like what they saw from Jackson last year, but I mean, you can't escape the fact that he got hurt during training camp, and then he got hurt in the one game he got to play at the end of the year. So he's got injury issues. Calcaterra is a good receiving tight end, not a very good blocker, but he also almost retired from football because of concussions. So you got 2 injury-prone guys. I'm going to combine that to be like one sure guy. And then Stoll's just kind of a solid blocker that they've used before. So I'm going to keep 4 tight ends. Those are my guys.
I'm going a little bit less than you. I'm going to go 3. Obviously, we're going to go Dallas Goedert here. We're going to go We're going to go Calcaterra as my number 2. I'm putting Tyree Jackson on the PUP list because he would obviously be that guy if he wasn't, recovering from injury. That Calcaterra Stoll position is really interesting because Calcaterra is like really a strong receiving threat, whereas Stoll is not so much, but a good blocking kind of tight end. So we're starting to get into some differences, which is fun because when we get done with this show, we're going to kind of break down what we think this means for training camp battles and position battles moving forward. Let's get into that O-line, man. You're up.
Okay, so I had the Eagles keeping 10 on the offensive line here. So, so obviously you got your starting 5. Well, I guess the starting 5 is not obvious. I've got Jordan Mailata at the left tackle, Landon Dickerson at left guard, Jason Kelce is my center, Jack Driscoll is going to be my right guard, and Lane Johnson is my right tackle. So that's my starting group. Now, Isaac Seumalo is not on that list. I think people are jumping to conclusions that because he played left guard, he can play right guard too, and it's not always that simple. So you'd ask him to switch sides, but you already have a guy in Jack Driscoll who played well last year at right guard between Kelce and Lane Johnson, and that continuity is really big. And so I think it'll be an open competition in camp between Driscoll and Seumalo. Right now, I favor Driscoll in that matchup, but I'm keeping Seumalo. He's a good all-around interior backup. So Seumalo will be on that list. Cam Jurgens is going to be on the list. Obviously, I didn't spend a second-round pick on him not to keep him. Sua Opeta is going to be on my list. LaRaven Clark is going to be on my list. Is that 10? No, that's 9. Who am I missing? Mailata, Dickerson, Kelce, Seumalo, Johnson. Oh, Dillard, Andre Dillard. That's who I'm missing. I think they'd love to trade Andre Dillard because I think Andre Dillard is a serviceable left tackle. I don't think he's going to live up to his draft slot. I think he struggled a little bit initially, and then Jordan Mailata just turned out to be really good. And because he can't switch to play right tackle, it limits his impact as a backup. Because, if Lane Johnson goes down, well, you can't put him at right tackle. You've got to put him at left tackle, and you've got to shift Jordan Mailata, and that's not ideal. So his inability to be a swing tackle means he's not an ideal backup. I do think the Eagles would love to trade him. I wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of deal get done with a training camp injury or something like that.
Dave McNulty says, you guys don't think they trade Jalen Reagor and keep Greg Ward and bring Covey on the roster. Any reaction to that, Shane?
I think they would love to trade Jalen Reagor to save him a bunch of money. I don't think anybody wants Jalen Reagor.
No one's trading for that. 100%. On an ideal world, 100%. But I agree. On my end, I've got 10 offensive linemen. I'm going Mailata, of course. I'm going. Let me type this in. Mailata. I'm going Dickerson. Kelce. I'm going to go Seumalo. I don't think they're going to shake it up. But I do like Jack Driscoll there in that competition. I think that's one of the top, training camp battles of, Eagles training camp for sure. Seumalo, of course, we've got Lane Johnson. Jurgens, 100%. I think, obviously in that same kind of frame of mind, they're going to keep Andre Dillard. Not a versatile guy, but he's still a solid backup to Jordan Mailata. And then we got Opeta, probably the likely backup at left guard. My 10. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're at 8. What's my notes say? Driscoll, of course.
Yeah.
Driscoll is on the roster. And then we've got Clark, who is probably the top backup for Lane Johnson. He'd probably swing out to left tackle if shit happens with Andre Dillard. So we're pretty much copy and paste there. I think we're pretty much there it is. So we went chalk. We're a little differences on the next two positions. Then at the O line we're chalk. So let's do D line, man. What is your D line squad for the 53-man roster?
Okay, so overall, I've got 9 defensive linemen that I'm keeping. I'll start with the edge guys. Got Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat as edge rushers. That's probably my starting duo. Obviously, there's some concerns about Brandon Graham at his age coming off of an injury. There could be concerns about Sweat with the injury things that caused him to fall in the draft, although he's been really healthy. With the bizarre exception of his medical issues that kept him out of the playoff game last year. He had like life-threatening bleeding in his leg or something like that, just kind of out of left field. But that's supposedly all good. That's your starting duo. And then you've got Derek Barnett, who they brought back on a 1-year deal, and Taron Jackson, who they drafted last year. So that's kind of your edge group. You can throw Milton Williams in there as a guy that he's going to rush from the inside, but he's going to be used on the outside some too. So he's kind of a tweener there. And then I kept 4 true defensive tackles. You've got Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave. You've got Jordan Davis, and then Marlon Tuipulotu, who I half kept because his name's fun to say, and I needed one more. He was my 53rd guy, so I went through and I had 52. And I decided, well, the Eagles like the trenches. I've already kept 10 offensive linemen. They'd probably like to keep Tuipulotu. So there we go. That's my 9 offensive linemen, or defensive linemen, excuse me.
I'm pretty much going the same route. The only difference is I'm just trying to catch up here. I'm not going Marlon Tuipulotu on my end. I think they're going to look at the secondary to add a body there on my end. And I'll argue Noah Ellis on this roster is a more valuable, roster candidate because he's more of a prototypical nose tackle. And they gave him a lot of money as a UDFA signing. So for me, Noah Ellis is on that bubble, not Marlon Tuipulotu for me. But he doesn't make the roster. But I'm going 9 here. But when we get into kind of our discussion about top training camp battles and kind of guys that are on the bubble, we'll get there in a little bit. Let's move on to linebacker. Lead us off, Shane.
All right, I kept 6 linebackers. I've got Kazir White, Hassan Reddick, and Nakobe Dean as my main 3 guys. I think Hassan Reddick, he's going to be your Sam. Kazir White's going to be when you signed him, you thought he was going to be your weak side linebacker, but that's going to have to go to Nakobe Dean now. So White's going to shift into the middle linebacker. And then I'll fill out that room with, where'd it go? Davion Taylor, TJ Edwards, and then the rookie that they drafted, Kyron Johnson. I think Kyron Johnson, he's a pass rush type guy. He's not really much in coverage. I think if you're going to build your defense around someone like Hassan Reddick, it's really important to have a guy like Johnson that's just an athletic pass rusher. I think we're going to see the Eagles this year potentially do a lot of like 5-man looking fronts, looking a little like 5-2 with 3 down linemen and 2 outside linebackers up on the line. Really interested to see how that's going to play out. But I do think Kyron Johnson is, unless he just looks terrible in training camp, I think he's a near lock as a day 3 pick to make the roster, just as a backup that can provide the same things that Reddick does.
Little difference on my end. I've also got 6 linebackers for the Philadelphia Eagles right now. I got to give, credit to Howie Roseman here first and foremost. easily the most improved position on the team. They've gotten faster. They've gotten better in coverage. They've also got a lot of optionality here. They could play a 4-3. They could play a 3-4. They could play a 3-3, a 5-1. Starting off with Reddick, I cannot wait to see what Jonathan Gannon does with this dude in this defense. Kaiser White, 100% starter. Nakobe Dean, assuming he's healthy, he's 100% going to get a lot of snaps. My guy, TJ Edwards, I think that battle between Dean and Edwards is an underrated subplot of this training camp. We'll get into that in a little bit. And then Sean Bradley, fight for the cherry and the fucking white. Let's go. My guy from Temple University makes the roster as a special teamer. I love my guy, Sean Bradley. He's a beast for my Temple Owls. Gets that 6th spot for a linebacker. Let's go to cornerback, Shane. Go ahead.
All right, I just realized I left somebody off, so I'm going to go take Tui Pulotu off of my defensive line list because I need a spot.
Oh, okay.
Because I realized I forgot about Jimmy Moreland, who the Eagles signed, and I think they're definitely going to keep him around. So I need a spot for him. So we'll do that. That'll make it work here. So obviously CB1, 2, 3 is set. That's going to be Slay, Bradbury, and Maddox. Now, there's been a little bit of smoke going around, and it's not coming from official Eagles stuff, but people have talked about Moreland is also a slot, and the Eagles have a lot of those slot type bodies with Maddox, with Josiah Scott, with Tate Gowan, and so did they really need another slot? And so there's been some talk that they might think about moving Avonte Maddox back to safety where he played, and he did well some as a rookie. I hope they don't do that because I thought Maddox was really good in the slot last year. I'd love to see him just stick there. So that's what we're going to do here. We'll see how that plays out. But that's your starting 3. And then, no particular order here, but I'm going to keep Josiah Scott, Zach McPherson, and Jimmy Moreland. So I'm going to have 6 corners. Tay Gowan doesn't make the roster. Maybe he can get onto the practice squad here. And notably, I didn't keep any of those UDFAs, Josh Jobe or Mario Goodrich. And I think, when we talk about training camp battles, this is going to be a great place to start because there's so many young, unproven guys there. But I only had room for 6, and those are the 6 I'm going to keep for now.
So you have Slay, Bradbury, Avonte, Scott, McPherson, and Moreland?
Yep, that's it.
All right. Looking at my notes here. I've got 7. We're going to go Slay, Bradbury, Avonte, McPherson. I'm gonna go Gowan. I think Tay Gowan makes this team. This is where it gets interesting, and I think we're gonna let's go. Obviously, if a lot's gonna change within the next 2-3 months, guys becoming available, all that kind of stuff at this position, and in the defensive back area for the Eagles. But I'm going to go 2 guys. I'm going to go Mario Goodrich. And then I'm going to go, let's go Josh Jobe out of Alabama for me, because there's definitely a lot of room for the Eagles for them to grow. So Jobe, and I'm going to go Goodrich.
All right.
Go to safety. This is where it gets ugly.
Yeah, I only kept 3 safeties, and I think they'll keep more. I just can't bring myself to keep anybody else on this roster. So I kept Harris, Marcus Epps, and Kavon Wallace. I couldn't bring myself to use a roster spot on anybody else that they currently have. So I don't even know what to do with that position. It's really bad.
I've also got 3. I've got Epps, same. 31-year-old stopgap guy. He's got experience, but what you get from this dude. He's just is what he is. Anthony Harris had a disappointing year, and Wallace, I feel like we've been waiting for Kayvon Wallace to take that next step every single year, and it's just not happening. So I also have 3 at this position. That is a huge area for the Eagles that they need to upgrade moving into this training camp if someone becomes available. Long snapper, who you got?
Ricky Lovato is the only guy that's on the roster right now. There hasn't been any issues with him, so I'm assuming he's going to stay.
Lovato, did I spell it right? It's Ovi. My bad.
It's Lovato.
Both got Ricky Lovato, Picker, Jake Elliott. I mean, he hit 90.9% of his field goal attempts, 100% of his extra points in 2021. He made the Pro Bowl last year. I have no issues with Jake Elliott, but then it gets interesting with Aaron Sipos, whatever you say his name is. That was not the best way for the Eagles punter to finish 2021, man. It was a tough finish for the dude. I mean, he had 37 yards average on his final 12 punts of the year last year. I'm actually kind of shocked the Eagles did not address this position. So for me, I've got Elliott and Sipos for me to round this out. But I would like to see the punter kind of upgrade at some point. But what do you got?
Yeah, the punter's not going to be Sipos. They're at least going to bring somebody in to compete with him. He was dreadful last year. He started the year strong, but at the end of the year, among all punters who played at least 15 games, he was like bottom 5 and average punt, net punt, punts inside the 20. Like, he was just bad. And so the Eagles didn't go draft one. I think they would have liked to take a punter, but they traded so much of their capital on day one. And so I think, they're going to wait. I think there was 4 punters drafted. Somebody can fact check me on that, but you don't draft a punter to not give them a job. So there's going to be at least 4 vets that get cut somewhere. One of them is going to come in and have a camp battle with Sipos, and they're probably going to beat him.
All right. So you also have Jake Elliott, 100%. We have Paul in the house saying if Britton Covey has a great camp, then he replaces Greg Ward on the 53-man roster as that final 53-man final wide receiver spot. I mean, let's go kind of look at this as it stands. This is our 53-man projection roster for the Philadelphia Eagles. What's your biggest training camp battle? I'll let you lead off, man. Go ahead.
I think that cornerback is going to be the biggest position to watch for that fringe roster. They have Zach McPherson, who they spent I think he was a 4th-round pick last year. They spent a 4th-round pick on him last year. And, he didn't look that good. He didn't get in a whole lot because he didn't look very good. They picked up Tay Gowan. I think they gave a 7th-round pick for him or something like that. So this will be his 2nd year in the NFL. They have Kerry Vincent Jr. They went out and signed Jimmy Moreland. They picked up Josh Jobe and Mario Goodrich as UDFAs. I think there is going to be a lot of interest in that 5th and 6th cornerback spot, kind of between those guys. So I hope that Goodrich and Jobe both win roster spots like you had on there, because it would mean that these young guys came in and they had a good camp showing. I don't know how it's going to play out, but that's probably the number one thing that I'd be watching during training camp.
I'm really interested in TJ Edwards versus Nakobe Dean. I think that's going to be a really fun fight. I think if Nakobe Dean is everything as advertised, I think he's going to step right in and take snaps right away. Like we said in previous podcasts, Nakobe Dean is excellent at getting pressure on the quarterback. This put up, shut up time for Jalen Hurts, but it's also put up or shut up time for Jonathan Gannon. And what this defense looks for the Philadelphia Eagles in 2022. I think Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis are part of that transformation. And Nakobe Dean getting to the quarterback, Hassan Reddick getting to the quarterback, giving opposing quarterbacks different looks in different sets. We're finally going to see that this year for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Dean is a huge proponent of that. So I'm really excited to see that training camp battle, because I think TJ Edwards is kind of an underrated Eagles player, at least over the last several years. So that's going to be a really fun battle for me. Let's go across the board. Obviously, it's not necessarily a training camp battle, but for me, Fletcher Cox versus Jordan Davis. I think that is going to be really fun. Especially come training camp. Fletcher Cox is kind of on the tail end of his Eagles career, maybe, looking to kind of get some a new change of scenery. And then we have Jordan Davis stepping in, who's just an absolute monster of defensive tackle, so nose tackle. So I think that's going to be a really, really fun battle to watch. No question about it. And Paul says Eagles acquired Tay Gowan in the Earth trade for with the Arizona Cardinals. I think Tay Gowan's in that same boat of a lot of guys that are kind of developmental guys like Josh Jobe, Zach McPherson, guys we're just waiting, especially outside cornerbacks. We're waiting to see them take that next step, pretty much in their development for sure.
It is.
Driscoll versus Sayamalo is also a great battle. That's a great battle to watch.
That's probably the most meaningful battle of training camp in terms of what you'll see on the field, because most of these other position battles we talk about, it's going to be positioning in a rotation or it's going to be fringe roster guys, but that's a legitimate starting spot that's up for grabs at right guard. You were talking about the cornerbacks, and I do think it's interesting that with all of the young people that the Eagles have in the cornerback room, that they got probably the two most high-profile corners that went undrafted in Josh Jobe and Mario Goodrich to sign with them. And they gave a lot of money to Goodrich. And so they told them something. Now, obviously, that was pre-Bradbury signing, and so they didn't have James Bradbury as CB2, and so maybe that changes the equation. But they told those guys something to get him here, and they paid Goodrich a decent amount of money. And so, maybe they are out on some of these younger guys that they haven't had very long. I am going to be really interested to see how that shakes out. And I'm also really interested to watch, not necessarily a training camp battle, but I want to watch Carson Strong in the preseason. Like, Eagles Twitter is going to be so crazy after Carson Strong lights up a whole bunch of guys that are going to be bagging groceries next year in the fourth quarter of a preseason game, because Carson Strong is a good quarterback who fell to where he did because of medical issues, and he's not mobile. But I promise you, he's going to put on a show in the preseason if he plays. And maybe the Eagles may IR him and just have him sit out a whole year to free up a roster spot, get him healthy, whatever. If he plays, though, people are going to be pretty excited after his first preseason game.
So I'm so happy you said that, because I was just about to get into Carson Strong as another training camp battle. I think Eagles fans watching training camp live, especially casual fans, are going to look at Carson Strong, and we all know how the backup quarterback position with Eagles fans works in Philadelphia. They're going to look at this dude, and they're going to see this guy throw dimes, absolutely throw dimes from 30, from 40, from 50 yards in the pocket. Carson Strong is pretty much the exact opposite kind of quarterback of Jalen Hurts, and with no pads, no quarterback pressure, sitting in the pocket. It's going to be a lot of fun to kind of see how Eagles fans react to that, especially on social media and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. Carson Strong is not a training camp battle, because I agree, Shane, he's got a long way to go for sure. But I think that's going to be probably the most fun storyline, hands down, of training camp. Paul says a surprise move could be the Eagles trading Javon Hargrave, who is in his final year. If Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, and Tui Peloto and another young Eagles there, I don't think that's going to happen, not this year. Just my opinion. Mike is in the house. What's going on, Mike? Thanks for joining, man. I'd be mad as hell if they traded Hargrave, bro. Quentin says the Eagles are going to rotate D linemen like hockey lines. That's what they do. Mike says Kobe and Carson Strong are both making the team. Screenshot this. I think if Jalen Reagor wasn't a first-round pick, you're right on it. But that's not reality.
I think it has less to do with this point with him being a first-round pick than it does just the fact that he's cheaper if they keep him than if they cut him. And so if they can't trade him, as long as he shows up to training camp and tries, I can't see them cutting him just because of the cap implications.
For Paul, it is Sayamalu versus Driscoll, Jack Stahl versus Cal Calcaterra. And
See,
then,
I don't view Stoll and Calcaterra as really a battle. I think they've got two very different roles. Stoll's a good blocker, and Calcaterra is a good receiver. If you could combine them, you'd have a good tight end. But I think they'll probably both get some time, just used in very different roles.
What's your thoughts on Kenny Gainwell versus Miles Sanders heading into training camp? Because I agree, or I think we both agree, that we're not that high on Miles Sanders moving forward on this roster. I think Kenny Gainwell is one of the breakout candidates of the entire 2022 NFL league. I think Gainwell has a lot of potential in Nick Sirianni's offense in year 2. Any thoughts on that?
They showed in the first year that they really like to use him in hurry-up situations. They really liked him out of the backfield as a receiver or as a blocker. He got constant usage in 2-minute drill situations. I liked Gainwell as a pick. I haven't seen enough of him as a runner yet to know if I like him as a feature back. I like him as a piece that you're going to move around and things like that. I think Sanders is going to still be the bulk of your carries, but I do think that Gainwell has a chance to win a pretty good shot going forward. I don't know that he's ever going to be a feature back, but I think he could be a part of a rotation, a 1B sort of guy.
Yeah.
I do think you'll see him more this year. I think you're going to see him more than Boston Scott. I do think he'll be the running back too. And I'm excited to see him get more of that role because I thought he showed some good flashes last year.
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at, Jalen Hurts taking that next step in his development, like you look at his checkdowns, the frequency was among the worst in the NFL last year. You want a check down? How about Kenny freaking Gainwell? Being there, as that, guy for Jalen Hurts next year. I think Gainwell is a huge story for this Eagles roster, and especially this offense taking that next step forward. Quentin says, "I'm looking forward to the next quarterback controversy. It's coming, man. It's coming. The Carson Strong hashtag." In Philadelphia is 100% coming. We have Paul saying the quarterback 3 battle between Sinnett and Strong would be fun to watch. Any thoughts on Sinnett? Like, I haven't really looked into him, to be honest. What about you?
No, I haven't either, but he's not going to beat Carson Strong out.
No, it's not happening. Paul says lots of battles on defense, safety, backup cornerbacks, linebacker group. Yeah, fully agree. Mike says, I swear I was just talking about this. Gainwell needs to be the future and the present. I don't think we're that far off, man. I think, this is just my opinion, but I do think there's a lot of Kool-Aid drinkers when it comes to Miles Sanders. It's just not translating. I think there's a Penn State factor. He's never healthy. He's always making terrible decisions with the football, with or without the football. And for me, I think Gainwell has a chance to be a breakout candidate for the Philadelphia Eagles. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, so last year he got 68 carries compared to Sanders 137. So, he got less than half the carries, and that's including Sanders being injured. Sanders missed 4 games. Gainwell appeared in every game. He wasn't consistent. He only had 4.3 yards per carry on the ground, but I thought he really shined as a pass catcher. And, he needs some more reps. I like him a lot. I think he's got the potential to be kind of a scat back. I view him kind of like a Darren Sproles type guy. He's undersized. You're going to have to use him a specific way. I don't think you're ever giving Gainwell 20 carries a game. I don't think he could hold up to that. But I do think he's going to be a weapon, especially in an offense that has Jalen Hurts as your primary runner. I mean, Jalen Hurts was the team's leading rusher last year. If you get kind of those scat back type guys around that, it can be really productive.
Yep. Paul says maybe Seattle cuts Chris Carson later this week. I wouldn't mind the Eagles taking a look at him as a bigger running back to complement Sanders and Gainwell. That's 100% on the table. Or they just bring back Jordan Howard, and we'll see how that works. How about kick returner, man? Because I know the Eagles Special teams was absolutely god awful last year. You look at kick returners, Jason Huntley. You've got Kobe. You've got Gainwell. You've got Rieger. You've got maybe Devin Allen, a speedster that might or might not make the roster. Like then you get to punt returner Rieger, Greg Ward, Kobe. Like, what's your thoughts on kick returner and punt returner for the Eagles in 2022?
I think Covey gets the first shot at that. I think if he's able to set himself apart, that's how he makes the team as a wide receiver. If he can't win that job, he's not going to make the roster just purely as a receiver. Now, it depends how much do the Eagles value that. They haven't appeared to value the return game the last couple of years because it's a big deal to keep a guy just to be your returner unless you really value that and unless he really stands out. So if the difference is starting at the 22 versus the 25 every drive, is that worth keeping a guy? I don't think so. So I think he's going to have to stand out, and the Eagles have to make a commitment to it. But Covey is the guy that I would look to as that likely returner.
Mike says Pollard is better than Zeke. Game will eventually be better than Sanders. I 100% agree with that. You don't want to be paying Sanders like Dallas is paying Zeke. I mean, that conversation doesn't start, correct? Like, there's no way Miles Sanders gets even near or close to what Ezekiel Elliott is making, right, Shane? Like, that's not even a conversation.
Not from the Eagles, at least. I mean, the Eagles, they don't invest in the running back position. No. I was surprised when they took Miles Sanders with a second-round pick, and I fully expect this to be his last year. The Eagles are not going to bring him back on a second contract unless, he has a good year this year and he agrees to a team-friendly deal, which why would he? But, I mean, Ezekiel Elliott rushed for the lowest yardage he's ever had in a season is 979 yards. He's been over 1,000 yards 4 out of 6 seasons, and the other 2 he's been within 21 yards of 1,000 yards. And so, the Cowboys paying him was stupid. But they did it because he's was a really good player. I think he's come down to earth some. Miles Sanders isn't that. Miles Sanders is not getting a heavy workload, and he still can't stay healthy. And he's never even hasn't come within 100 yards of 1,000-yard season yet. So I don't even think that's a conversation.
I was really surprised they didn't go running back earlier in this draft. I'm really happy about, Brooks in this draft or after the draft. But for me, I'm surprised they didn't take anybody. And Paul says, with the Eagles hiring Brandon Hunt from the Steelers organization, which was a great hire for sure. We'll see how long he lasts with the Philadelphia Eagles. But he wonders if they look at free agent running back. I'm going to butcher this last name, K. Ballage. I don't even know how to. Shane, do you know how to pronounce that?
I think you got it right or close to it. Ballage.
230 pounds, 4.46, 40-yard time, and he's 26 years old. I mean, if the Eagles are looking into that Steelers pipeline for prospects, especially wide receivers, perhaps, I'm all in. Why not? Because I think he kind of fits exactly what the Eagles need. What's your thoughts on this?
I mean, he never really caught on anywhere that he's been. On his career, he only averages like 3.1 yards per carry. So I don't think he's going to get a job anywhere, to be honest. Even in Pittsburgh last year, he only got 12 carries. So I would be surprised if they made a move like that. I'd much rather see a guy like Kennedy Brooks out there.
Yeah, I think Kennedy Brooks is a really fun name to watch. I think Eagles fans will be definitely overhyping that dude throughout training camp and the preseason. Quinn says Kaepernick is still available. Mike says Britton Covey is going to get probably those kick return and punt return snaps.
That's like a throwback to like 7-8 years ago when everybody was saying the Eagles should get Kaepernick.
Yeah, right. 100%. They signed returnman Allen to a multi-year deal, and he'll get every opportunity. Is that Devin Allen? I think he's referring to, right? Was it a multi-year deal?
I'll look it up while you go.
Can you look that up? Because that would be shocking if they signed a guy who hasn't played football in since 2016. I need to know that. Paul says things in today's NFL, 1 of 5 kickoffs ever get returned these days. So the position has been minimalized, but a good punt return is a huge asset. I like Britton Covey in this role. I 100% agree. Mike says K. Balaj. Sorry if I butcher that last name. Never heard of him. Went to high school around the corner from me in Colorado. Dude, what part of Colorado do you live in? I would love to know that because Colorado is the freaking best. I've been around the state a lot. Dude is a beast.
So Allen, they signed him to a 3-year deal worth $2.5 million, but only $40,000 of it is guaranteed. So
yeah, it's a 1-year deal.
Yeah, so they could cut him, and it only costs them $40,000. So
yeah,
I mean, they're going to give him a shot. They signed him to look at him, but there's nothing in his contract prohibitive to cutting him.
Yeah, it is what it is. Any other final thoughts on our 53-man roster? What did I get wrong? What did you get right? More so, what did I get right? Any final thoughts?
Greg Ward should not be on this roster. And I love Greg Ward. I rooted for him, but you're looking at a wide receiver 5 there because I fully expect Pascal to be the 4. Your wide receiver 5 can't be a guy that's in his late 20s that offers nothing in special teams. He's not developmental anymore. He doesn't offer anything on special teams. So that was the biggest thing you did that I would not be happy about if the Eagles take up a roster spot with Greg Ward.
Absolutely love it. Yeah, I'm used to it, man. I've been hearing that for the last 2 years straight. And people just keep making fun of me, but Greg Ward keeps chugging along. Went to Colorado Springs. That's cool, man. I've driven through there. I've never
seen family there.
Do you really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've driven through there, but I've stayed in Aspen and Boulder and Keystone, kind of all around there. Snowmass, but I've never stayed in Colorado Springs. That's really, really cool. Paul says, I was dreaming of the following trade scenario with the Bears and Eagles, sending Andre Dillard and Rieger for Eddie Jackson. What do you think? Bears drafted Jaquan Brisker and have no viable left tackle. Any thoughts on that, man? I mean, we've been waiting for the Eagles to trade both of those guys for a couple years now, so obviously it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I was disappointed with how the Bears handled the draft in not getting guys for Justin Fields. They didn't address offensive line. They didn't address wide receiver, really. It just seems like they're not really about building around Justin Fields, to be honest. And that's sad because I really like Fields coming out, and I just don't know that he's going to get a shot there. Their left tackle, Larry Borum, he's not very good. Andre Dillard would be a better player, I think. Eddie Jackson wasn't very good last year either. Now, they did draft several defensive backs. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they'd swap something like that out. I don't know what the contracts look like, but I do know Eddie Jackson played pretty poorly last year in Chicago. But you would be an upgrade for the Eagles at safety, so I'd be thrilled with Eddie Jackson.
Yeah, I'll take anything at safety. The Eagles are one safety away from me to just absolutely go absolutely crazy as a fan with this Eagles roster. That's how close we are. And I try to be even keel 100% all the time with all of my Philly sports. But on paper, they're looking nice. Mike says Pascal will somehow play a huge role this season. He was the Colts version of Greg Ward, man. I'm still working on this. Mike, Greg Ward has been my guy for a long time. So if Pascal is the new Reno Mahe, I'll deal with it and I will, grow accustomed to it. I'm not there yet. I love me some Greg Ward. I think Greg Ward has never been given the respect he deserves. But
for people who haven't watched Pascal, that's a good comp. the
Is
Colts
it?
version of Greg Ward. Yeah, I mean, just kind of a reliable guy. Not going to give you much yak. He's just kind of where he's supposed to be. He generally catches trophies. He's just kind of a I mean, he's just kind of a reliable guy, I guess.
He's more of a blocker, right? Like he's a red zone blocker, good size.
Yeah.
Like he's not like here's what he is.
Right.
But he's Sirianni's buddy, and I think of like Andy Reid and Rito Mahe to Nick Sirianni and Zach Pascal. Like that's how I see how this going for the next at least 2 years, because we know Sirianni's not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. All the pressure's on Jalen Hurts. All the pressure's on Jonathan Gannon. And not saying there's not pressure on Nick Sirianni, but that's how I view it right now. Mike says, I've got mountains in the picks. Colorado Springs is home, man. I'm so jealous, man. That's God's country. That is the best of the best. I love traveling out there. I got engaged out there. Fun fact. I proposed to my wife in Colorado. We'll share that. We'll save that story for another podcast. Quinn said, last time we saw Rieger on the field, it was a disaster. Why would anybody trade for him? I agree, man. Like,
there's a sucker born every minute. And I mean,
how many GMs out there really would trade for Jalen Rieger?
I mean, you might trade another guy you've got that's underachieving or like a 7th round pick. Nobody's going to give up anything significant for him, but you can always fall back on. He was a 1st round pick, and he went to a place that doesn't develop wide receivers well, and maybe in a place that's difficult to play once you're on people's bad side. Maybe we can get him in a different environment. I mean, people can talk themselves into players like that, especially if it's a low-cost thing. And so, I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade for him.
No, not at all. Mike says Justin Fields is the most unloved quarterback in the NFL. Paul says, my daughter lives in Denver and loves it. Denver is gorgeous, man. Absolutely straight up gorgeous. I don't see the Bears winning 4 or 5 games this year. A bad offseason and roster building from their new GM with a new coaching staff. And then Paul says, I live in North Carolina, home of the Appalachian State University, nestled in Blue Ridge Mountains. All right. And Mike says, nobody's trading for Jalen Rieger, and rest in peace, Jeff Gladney, which was probably the worst news of the weekend by far. Just hearts out, prayers up for Jalen Rieger, man. That sucks, man. What a horrible, horrible thing for Jeff Gladney. I think it was a car accident, right?
I think that's what I heard, yeah.
Oh, just terrible. Just prayers up for Jalen Rieger and his family. I know he's in a bad spot, but yeah, thank you everyone for commenting. Any last thoughts, Shane?
I can't wait for football season to start. It feels like I'm having a hard time like reining in the optimism, because I look at the Eagles, who notoriously have not had good wide receivers, and now they've got A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Quez Watkins. It's the best receiver trio they've had since, I don't know, since Macklin and Deshaun Jackson were on the same team. And who was the 3 then? I can't even remember. Was that Avant?
It was.
I think so.
Yeah, so Jason Avant as the slot.
Yeah. And then you look at corners, too, a position they've traditionally struggled with. And they've got Slay, Bradbury, and Avonte Maddox, which I think you could argue is the best corner trio in the league. If not that, it's top 3. They might not have like the elite talent guy, but they're solid all the way through. And so I'm really excited about that. It all comes down to Jalen Hurts, though. That's what this season comes. And obviously, health and things like that you can't account for. But the roster's built and it's good, minus safety. And so this team's going to go as Jalen Hurts goes. And so I'm excited to see what he's able to do. 2nd year, same offense, same coach. They got him an elite playmaker over the middle of the field in A.J. Brown. I'm excited to see what this season holds.
Yeah, it's truly difficult for me to rein in that inner fan for me. I saw an article today comparing Darius Slay and James Bradbury to Troy Vincent and Sheldon Brown, 2 of my favorite Eagles of all time. And, now we're getting to the point where It's on paper. It's on paper, and I am constantly telling myself to say it's on paper. And that's the honest truth. Is the inner Eagles fan in me is going crazy, but as a analyst, as a guy who like studies the game, I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting. I need to see it come through. I need to see it come through with Jonathan Gannon. I need to see it come through with Jalen Hurts. I need to see it come through. And then eventually Nick Sirianni's play calling. What does that look like? Giving the ball more to Jalen Hurts and trusting him more as a quarterback, as a passer in the pocket, trusting him more with a bigger kind of playbook that opens up his arm in that intermediate to downfield. I know what Jalen Hurts is going to do between the sticks. Everybody knows what he's going to do. He's either going to, make that quick pass or, run out of the pocket and probably impress a lot of people. But for me, Jalen Hurts needs to do better with his checkdowns. He needs to do better against better defenses, especially 10 yards and more. He needs to do better with 20 yards and more. He needs to hit his guys in stride. There's so much there for Jalen Hurts, and I fully agree, Shane. Like, it's put up or shut up time for Jalen Hurts. And that's truly, honestly, the best case scenario for this Eagles team. There's a lot of positives going on this offseason for the Philadelphia Eagles. The biggest positive by far is that it's all on Jalen Hurts, and there are no excuses. It's put up or shut up time, and we're going to truly find that out. Probably, I would say, like 10 games. I'll give Jalen Hurts like 10 games. No questions asked. I expect some growing pains. I expect more snaps, throwing the ball down the field. And I expect him to make some mistakes. I am 100% okay with, Jalen Hurts to kind of come back the next week and kind of figure it out. But for me, I'm just very happy to know that we are in this spot because this is going to be a very attractive destination franchise for any other quarterback outside of Jalen Hurts to come in here with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith, with one of the best O-lines in the NFL, and Dallas Goedert. And it's all there, man. There's a lot of reasons to be excited as an Eagles fan. Right, Shane?
Yeah, for sure. And even if you're out on Jalen Hurts, which you should still be rooting for the guy. I mean, I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be the quarterback for this team 3 or 4 years from now. But I think there's a chance. He hasn't done anything that proves he's not the guy. If he did, the Eagles would have addressed it. And so I think that, it's exciting to figure out if he's your guy this year, and to know if he is your guy, you got, 3 picks in the first 2 rounds this year and 3 picks in the first 2 rounds the following year to build around him. And if not, well, then you go get a guy, but you've got, a stud left tackle of the future. You've got a really good receiving trio. You've just got a lot of weapons. The team is ready to swap out quarterbacks next year and instantly be a contender if you get the right guy, if Hurts isn't that. And so, it's win-win this year. Hurts is the guy and they go make a run in the playoffs. He's not the guy, and you hopefully swap him out for QB1 next year, and you're still right there. This isn't going to be dwelling in mediocrity for years like the Bears and like some of these other teams that have been in that purgatory for years. The Eagles, they're right there. They're always competitive, and that makes it exciting.
I think the most intriguing question for me is what happens regarding Jalen Hurts and his ceiling, and what happens when you combine that in contrast with, the fans. Because there's going to be a point in this season, 100%, when it comes to getting wins versus, giving Jalen Hurts the ropes and allowing him to grow as a passer, as a quarterback in the pocket, and finding that mid-balance in between those two. I think that's going to test a lot of Eagles fans, especially my man Rob Lange for Party on Broad, because that is the difference. Because obviously we know Jalen Hurts is an excellent game manager. He's great at that. He's great at helping a great rushing offense But what more can we expect from him? And what more can we expect from him as a passer? It is a passing league. You have to be able to beat defenses with your arm, like we just said earlier. So I feel like that's going to be one of the most intriguing things. Will Nick Sirianni succumb to like the pressure of Eagles fans and social media? Let's just run the ball like 40, 50 times and, make everyone happy, or give Jalen Hurts the ball 30 plus times with his arm and see what he's got. And that could lead to losses. I think that's going to be such a fun thing to watch, a fun thing to develop this year, right, man?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty in on Nick Sirianni after what I saw him do last year. I'm also really excited to see Jonathan Gannon. And I don't think Jonathan Gannon will be the defensive coordinator the following season because they've given him the weapons he needs. He's either going to excel and go get a head coaching job, or he's going to flop and he's going to be gone. I don't think there's really a lot of in between for him. But he has the weapons now to be creative. I don't think he played the style of defense he wanted to last year. I think we saw early in the year him try some things and they didn't work, and then he just got vanilla. I'm really excited to see some of the things he's going to scheme up with. You've got a guy like Dean that you can rush from the second level, and you've got Reddick, and you can use Reddick in like a 5-2 sort of front. I just think there's a lot of things they can do schematically. To be honest, that most people are not even going to notice watching the game, but I think it's going to be fascinating to see the X's and O's of all of that.
Yeah, and we talk about like put up or shut up time for, Jalen Hurts. Same thing, not so much same thing, but near pretty much same thing for Jonathan Gannon, man. He's got much better pieces this year to kind of form his identity with his Eagles defense, which is going to be a lot of fun to watch for sure. Paul says, this might be the most fun summer camp in a long time. Lots of position battles for backups, for rotation players, and young and new players. Exciting times, man. I fully agree, man. It's a really fun time to be an Eagles fan, man. And it's amazing to think where this team could be, I'm sorry to say, next year with 2 first-round picks and all that kind of stuff moving forward. It's house money, right? It's almost like house money. There's a lot of reasons to be excited. Paul says, don't sleep on Reed Blankenship making the 53-man roster over Kayvon Wallace. He'll be a fan favorite over the summer. I didn't really look into him that much. Any thoughts on that, dude?
Yeah, I don't know a ton about Blankenship. I do know that Kayvon Wallace has never been able to stay healthy. He's never hit like we thought he might. I was excited about Wallace when they drafted him. Something about 4th-round picks. I always really like those 4th-rounders, but I don't think it's necessarily a make it over him though. I do think we both only had him keep 3 safeties. They play 3 safeties. They need 4 or 5 safeties. I don't know where those guys are coming from, but it's very possible both those guys make
Quentin says, mid-season trade of Minshew for Foles, and Foles loses to another championship. That ain't happening, man. Mike says Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean, who has a better season at their position. I think Davis dominates early. I'll let you go first, Shane, because I know exactly where I'm going with this one.
Davis is going to have a more dominant season, and no one's going to notice because he's a defensive lineman that's going to 2-gap and eat up blocks, and he's going to get like 1 sack, and people are going to scream about how it was a bad draft pick. And then I'm going to put out videos and show you how he's impacting the defense. Nakobe Dean, I think, if he plays and if he's not 100% healthy, they should sit him out the whole year because his longevity is really important. But I think Nakobe Dean's going to flash. I mean, you're going to see he's going to be flashy if he plays. And Davis is not going to be flashy, but Davis is going to make a bigger impact in this defensive scheme. I promise you.
Fully agree, man. It's Nakobe Dean. I agree, though. Like what Jordan Davis is going to do to open up that Eagles pass rushing attack for Josh Sweat, for Hassan Reddick, for Brandon Graham, like that does not go. What's the word? We know what that's going to mean. Taking on those double teams at that position. For me, 100% it's Nakobe Dean, man. I think I put out a stat there. Hassan Reddick and Nakobe Dean had 45 quarterback pressures last year. I'm talking about last year. I know Nakobe Dean played college, but 45. The entire Eagles linebacker crew had 6 last year. 6. It's gonna be insane. And then you add that. You add a beast like Jordan Davis on the interior to open up the edges and lanes for Nakobe Dean's speed to truly take center stage. I think it's clearly Nakobe Dean for me. But I agree, Shane, wholeheartedly that Jordan Davis plays that position like Landon Dickerson or Jason Kelce, guys that probably don't get enough recognition as they should, but Nakobe Dean is going to be a monster in this defense. And I think Eagles fans are going to absolutely love what he brings with his speed, with his instincts, with his coverage ability, with his ability to go sideline to sideline and just read the offense. It's something we haven't seen in a long time. So Nakobe Dean is easily a guy that's been put on a pedestal. And he was what? Was he SEC Player of the Year? What? I think so, right? You're muted, man.
Oh, oops. I'm not sure if he was Player of the Year. He might have been.
I think it was SEC Player of the Year.
I honestly don't keep up with the college awards super closely, but
yeah, he's going to be terrific. Paul says, I see Hurts improving his pass completion to 65%, 34 to 3,600 yards, 26 to 20 touchdowns, 68 rushing touchdowns, 12 interceptions. I think that's a pretty good year for Jalen Hurts. Dude, Paul, man, props, man. I think that's exactly where I think Jalen Hurts will probably be. I think a lot of people are like well beyond that, like saying 4,000 yards and like 30-plus touchdowns and things like that. But that's like, for me personally, like I think we're on the same wavelength for me. I think that's pretty much on point. Any thoughts on that, Shane?
I mean, I think if he puts together that kind of year, he's the Eagles quarterback moving forward. Last year he was 61% for 3,100 yards, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So, if he gets up to 65% and throws for 3,500 yards and has that kind of TD to interception ratio, he's probably your quarterback next year again. And that'd be great. That's what people should be rooting for. I'd love to see him take that kind of leap.
If Jalen Hurts puts together that kind of year, and we have 2 first-round picks to address, the edge rusher, to address other positions of need, man, we're looking good. Quinn says linebacker position is more flashy, 100%. I'm looking forward to the D-line play more than anything else. Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, those guys need to do better next year. Brandon Graham was hurt. Josh Sweat struggled against good teams, although, the top teams he played last year were in the first part of the regular season, and he was used a little bit differently. So I need to see Josh Sweat do more other than, against Washington. That's really what it comes down to. I need to see, the Eagles get home way more often. Because the Eagles, obviously, their passing it, their ability to get to the quarterback was not good enough. It's amazing what James Bradbury does to all of these podcasts. We've been doing so many podcasts about the Philadelphia Eagles and how Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat have been such an integral part of these shows. And now you got James Bradbury, and that changes things a little bit. But any thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, Sweat. I would like to see a breakout year from Sweat. I thought last year was going to be the year, and he kind of started strong, and he didn't disappear. I liked that they committed to him and they let Barnett go, but then they brought Barnett back. And so it does, I don't know if that was a move because they're not sure about Sweat or a move because they're not sure about Brandon Graham. I'm very interested to see the dynamic play out on the defensive line and how they're going to rotate these guys. I mean, they're all going to play, but I'd really like Sweat to clearly be that number one edge rusher.
Yeah, that's the one spot. That's the one. Now, I'm not complaining about Jordan Davis. I'm really excited to see what Jordan Davis means for everyone else on that defensive line, but that was my main spot. My main spot for the Eagles was an edge rusher to bring in, given the amount of talent that was right there for the Eagles. It didn't happen. So that is definitely something to look at. Mike says, I haven't been excited since we got TO. I can't be the only one who has expectations through the roof. Dude, Mike, I fully agree, man. I said this earlier in the show, like, as like an analyst, as like a guy that likes to kind of keep my fandom in check, inside. Like, I'm struggling, man. Mike, I'm struggling. Me and Shane were talking about this earlier. I'm pretty much on that same boat, but it's all on paper. I got to see what the Eagles look like, come week 1 and then week 6, and then we'll make kind of decisions on this. But for me, I'm right there with you, bro. Any thoughts on that, Shane? Like this is the Eagles are looking good.
Yeah. I'm ready. I'm ready to stop talking about it and start watching it, and then talking about what we saw instead of speculating. Because the more I speculate, the more excited I get, and then I'm like, oh, it's still 100 days until football starts. So
100%. Paul says Georgia had 3 defensive linemen drafted in the first round, so linebackers were running free and clean so many times. I will counter that and say I had a Georgia guy, a podcaster that covered the Bulldogs last year during the draft process, and he came on and just raved about Nakobe Dean. I wish I had. You can go check that out on this channel. But he was very adamant, saying that Nakobe Dean was the heart and soul of that Georgia defense, no question, because as good as that defensive line was for Georgia, they rotated so much, and Nakobe Dean was all over the place. He was the constant. He was the rock of that defense. So I'll throw that there for me. Any thoughts on that, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, it's true that he was able to play clean, and that's going to be the biggest question mark on him is what happens when he's not kept clean. Can he stack and shed blocks? He didn't really show that ability at Georgia. He showed a good ability to flow with the play when he was kept clean. But he's a very smart player. I mean, he was the heart and soul of that defense, the talent he was playing with aside. And so the Eagles invest in the defensive line. If there's a defensive line in the league that can keep him clean to make those plays, it's the Eagles, who have Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett. These are all really good run-stopping players. I'm not super concerned about it because of who he plays behind. If you just threw him behind a random defensive line, I'd be a little more concerned, though.
Thank you. Awesome stuff. Mike says Nakobe Dean won the Buckus. Thanks for the heads up there. Oh, man. Quinn says Hurts might get those numbers solely on a fewer drops and fewer wide receivers running out of bounds, man, and less targets to Jalen Reagor for sure in 2022. Paul says BG is a 25 snap a game player here in 2022. Hopefully brings 6-7 snacks. I hope we get way more than that, man. I know he's coming off an Achilles injury, but that can't happen. Not for this defense. No question. Do you expect more from BG, or do you expect a big drop off there, Shane?
Every time I think Graham is going to drop off, he doesn't. I want so badly for Brandon Graham to get a double-digit sack season.
He was a Pro Bowler last time he was healthy.
Yeah, but it's 2 years ago, and now he's going to be 34, and he's coming off a major injury. So, and he's never relied on his explosiveness and that sort of things. I think he'll be a solid player. I don't think he's going to be a high sack guy, though, because I think the defense is going to be arrayed differently.
Yeah.
And so I think you might see him more of a hold the line type of guy to free up Sweat off of one side and Reddick off the other. So I don't think you're going to see an 8, 9, 10 sack year out of Brandon Graham, although I would love nothing more than to see him get a double-digit sack season.
Paul says, I believe they decided to re-sign Derek Barnett once David Ojabo was injured. Dude, I fully agree with that. That's very, very close. Shout out to Mike for the donation, man. Great job, guys. Keep up the good content, man. Thank you so much. If you have any questions real quick, we're about to shut down the shop. But we'll be back tomorrow night talking birds. He's saying, great job, guys. Keep up the great content. Thank you so much. And last question before we close up. Quentin says, I'm still at 10-7. Where are you guys? Lead us off, Shane. Where are you at, man? I want to know.
I think that's about right. 10-7, 11-6 maybe. The Eagles are beneficiaries of a pretty easy schedule. And so I think they've got the second easiest strength of schedule. They open the season with some easier game. You never want to say there's an easy game, but their schedule starts favorably. Obviously, it's all a crapshoot because you don't know how injuries and things like that will play out. But I think the Eagles comfortably get to 10 wins. Maybe they can push up to 11.
Yeah, I was at 10 wins before James Bradberry, but obviously there's a lot there's plus 1 or 2 wins in there, that I think the Eagles could shock some people. I think it really it's obviously coming down to Jalen Hurts. I mean that's the obvious conversation to be had here. Can Jalen Hurts take that next step against good teams? Good defenses that with good front sevens that are able to kind of get in his face and kind of make him put his head down and run. What are we going to get from Jalen Hurts this year is the question moving forward, which is fun. I think that's not a negative. I think that's a positive. So when I crap on Jalen Hurts, when the regular season starts, I think this is all positive, man. Even if Jalen Hurts struggles, there's a lot of positives about where this team franchise is heading moving forward, and I think it's in the right direction for sure. Let's wrap it up, man. Mike, again, thank you so much for the donation. Do you have any plugs or final comments?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at @halfandhalf_TPL. So I always appreciate that. I tweeted out today a spread, like a Google sheet with a whole bunch of Steam keys for video games that I never claimed, that it's still floating around there. So go check my Twitter. If you like PC gaming, maybe you can claim a free game or two off of that. I'm just trying to give them away because I've got a big enough backlog. So go check that out. Check out my podcast, Chalk Talk. I do it with Dives. I do it with Mark Henry Jr. We're going to fire that back up. We went dark for 3 weeks while I was on vacation, closing out school stuff, but excited to be back in the saddle now, and watch out for some cool content I'm working on coming down the pipe in regards to some football teaching content stuff. So just keep it tuned to the Painted Lines, to me on Twitter and on YouTube, and we'll get through this off season together and into the hype of the new season.
It's going to be a lot of fun, man. It's just going to be so much fun. Paul has the Eagles going 11-6. Work in progress with the first 3-4 games, but really starting to gel in the second half of the season. Man, I'm just so excited, man. Is the season starting yet? That's really the where we're at right now. I am joining Mitch Kofsky's stream tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Please be sure to check out Mitch Kofsky on YouTube, Talking Birds, Talking Shop. I have no idea what we're talking about. I'm assuming it's the Philadelphia Eagles, but it's going to be a lot of fun anyway. And then tomorrow night as well at 9 o'clock, I've got a New York Giants beat reporter joining us. We're going behind enemy lines. We're going to be talking about the New York Giants and kind of previewing what we need to know about them. We're going to learn about what the Giants kind of advantage-wise has over the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll be honest, not much. And then the advantages the Eagles have over the New York Giants. So we're going to be really deep diving into that. And then obviously, Wednesday we have Obi-Wan Kenobi reviews. We have Stranger Things season 4 reviews, which I'm not going to spoil at all. And then tons of stuff moving forward. If you love the Sixers, I put out some of my first free agency videos. I've got Pat Connaughton, I've got PJ Tucker, I've got Otto Porter Jr., and I know I'm missing one. It's been a long day, but those are all there on the channel, and way more coming, man. I've got a brand new show about the drop, Sixers Roundtable show that's going to have the most amazing contributors coming here on the Painted Lines YouTube channel, just talking Philadelphia 76ers and the off season and where we're headed. So much coming, man. So much coming here on the channel. I can't even begin to explain. Follow my man Shane on Twitter at @halfandhalf_TPL. He had a recent tweet today, blow up, and well-deserved, man. Just one of the best Eagles followers, period. If you want real analysis, if you want real objective analysis on the Philadelphia Eagles, and you're not following Shane on Twitter at @halfandhalf_TPL, you're doing it wrong, Eagles fam. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. I am Dives, Mr. Crockpot. For Shane, for myself, stay awesome, everyone.